You know, if you study people who are at the pinnacle of anything, you recognize that to get there, motivation was maybe 1% of the formula. Maybe. 1%. And I'll prove it to you. If you want to become a world-class bodybuilder, say an IFBB pro, what that takes is you have to train twice a day, 6 days a week. You have to have 8 meals a day. Your calorie intake is regimented. Your meals are pre-planned and pre-cooked. You don't eat according to taste, you eat according to function. So my trainer, for instance, will eat and I'm going, what are you eating? And he's having he'll have chicken that was boiled without salt. And he'll have like half a kilo of it. And what are you doing? He says, I'm taking in protein. He doesn't say I'm eating. He says, I'm taking in protein. For him, it's functional. It's not taste-based. Then you will probably have to train for a minimum. And this is if you are a genetic phenom. You'd have to train for a minimum of 10 years before you could get on a stage and compete at an average level with an average global bodybuilder. Average. Okay. So why am I telling you this? All of us here at the beginning of a new year write these things called New Year's resolutions. And then New Year's resolutions, number 1, make more money. Yeah? Number 2, change my boyfriend. Number 3, get into shape. Yeah? Number 3, get into shape is somewhere in the top 3. So what do? You go to the gym, you get a gym membership. Yeah? You go to the local Nike store and you buy like all of your gym gear. You are motivated. You are inspired. You are going to the damn gym. You go to YouTube, you subscribe to all of the fitness channels. You go to your Instagram, you follow all of the fitness models. You are motivated. You are going to the damn gym. You're going to get in shape. That's what you're going to do. The people you're following on YouTube have been working on for a minimum of 5 years to look like that. So you have the incorrect understanding that after a month of working out, you're going to look like them. So what happens in the first month? You're excited. You go to gym every single month, and you take the pains and your body is sore, but I'm excited. I'm going to gym. Then life happens. Company doesn't make money. You don't make your targets. You fall a bit ill. Something happens. And all of a sudden you stop going to gym for a day. A day becomes 2, 2 becomes a week. Now all of a sudden you've had a gym membership for 3 months and you haven't been in that time. What did you miss? You thought motivation was the formula. Winners don't need motivation. Winners need discipline. Discipline's about getting it done because it needs to get done, not because I feel like it, not because I'm motivated for it. You think Nelson Mandela was motivated to spend 27 years in prison? You think Martin Luther King was motivated to march across the states and proclaim freedom? You think, if you look at people that change the world, they're not doing it because they're motivated. They're doing it because they made a commitment to do it and they disciplined to see it through. Discipline is far more important than motivation, which is why you got to be careful the decisions you make. Because once you make the decision, you have to see that decision through. Like my mentor says, first we make the decisions, then the decisions make us. So you got to be very careful the decisions you make. Be very careful the commitments you make. Motivation, I'm telling you now, is completely overrated. It's important. Don't get me wrong. We meet according to motivation. We feel good, rah-rah. But that'll fade. You need a stronger will and a deeper commitment to see things through.
One of my key phrases for the whole day: disciplines work miracles. Disciplines work miracles.
And I believe collectively as a group, we're going to kick the competition's butt because we understand how important it is to think, execute, and dominate. Suck it up. Get tough. Suck it up. Get tough. People want to have success. People want to make a lot of money, but they want it to be easy without any challenges. You think it was easy for me to become one of the top 450 basketball players in the world that you never heard of? The only way I made it to the NBA is I was fundamentally sound, I was mentally tough, and I never quit. And even when I wanted to quit, I had people in my life that would make sure I didn't quit. I hired and set out the top 10 motivational speakers, watched all their videos, and I watched them one by one because I understand that if I pay attention to what the best are doing, I could be the best too. I watched game film on Michael Jordan. No matter how much I watched, I couldn't do what Michael Jordan could do. I would watch Magic Johnson. I couldn't do what Magic Johnson would do, but I sat there and had these videos. I watched Les Brown, Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, but my wife was scared. I was scared. I called into my office and I said what husbands say. I said, babe, we're going to be okay. Every month the checking account is dwindling. I said, babe, we're going to be okay. Let's start a motivational speaking business. I go to Jerry Sloan and I say, Jerry, I'm trying to make your team, but since we don't scrimmage, I feel like I can't show you what I can do. Go to Corral, hear me clearly, listen to his answer, and it will unlock some mysteries as to how you become the best in the world at what you do over a long period of time. Jerry, I'm trying to make your team, but I feel like I can't show you what I can do. He says, Walter, I already know what you can do, but if you want to make my team, I suggest you listen, follow directions, and execute. Listen, follow directions, and execute. What I didn't realize, even though we didn't scrimmage and practice, throughout practice, we did drills, and he created what I call habits and rituals. Every single day, practice was the same. Every single day, we drilled on fundamentals. Every single day, we worked on the habits and rituals. So even though my mind was floating, even though I was selfish and self-centered, he was conditioning me into the culture through practice of habits and rituals. The reason why I tripled my NBA income in 3 years is because of habits and rituals. Next year, if your name didn't get called to come across the stage, I'm here to tell you they will call your name next year if you go back home and execute habits and rituals. I wanted to scrimmage for me, but Jerry Sloan was getting me ready to play for the Utah Jazz. So every day it was about habits and rituals. Having hot food is about habits and rituals. Great customer service is about habits and rituals. Being the best in the world at what you do, being a pro, is all about habits.
The heart of a champion. What does it take to really truly be a champion? Well, it takes more than excuses. It takes more than just giving yourself a pass. There are only so many champions in the world. And true champions understand what dedication and hard work really is. True champions understand if you're going to be a lion, you got to know what it means to go through the jungle. You can't pretend or fake it just to make it. To be a champion. When everybody else is sleeping, the champion is the one that wakes up. The champion gets up before the sun comes up. The champion is the one that never lets the sun catch them sleeping. There will become a time when you have to realize that you got to put in the work and you got to understand that if you're going to do it, you better do it with the right attitude. Because attitude is what's going to take to get you to the level that you need to be and beyond it. Champions don't just come overnight. Champions have to grow. Champions have to work. Champions have to dig. Champions have to believe. Champions don't have time to wait around for something to happen on its own. Being a champion takes work, grit, and understanding that if you're trying to be better than the opponent, you got to work a little bit harder than the person that you up against.
You must build a mindset for success. A mindset that can endure pain and struggle because it will come. Your mindset will make or break you.
A champion has to make significant sacrifices. A champion has to be disciplined. A champion has to be hungry. You got to dedicate everything about you.
Train like a champion.
Champions understand that discipline is always the key.
There is no winning in excuses. There are no victories and giving up. You got to understand within you is greatness. Within you is something that is waiting to be awakened. You are the one that is responsible for this work that must be done. Everyone wants to be great at something. But wanting it and doing something about it and ultimately needing it is going to take work. It's going to take dedication, because procrastination is the assassination of your motivation that would ultimately lead you to your destination. Make sure you understand that you're going to have to put something in it to get something out. A champion does not worry. It doesn't concern themselves about challenges that they have to face. They realize that they have to put in work. They realize that every opponent that they face is an opportunity to go a little farther up that ladder. You're not worthy to be a champion if you don't apply yourself to be one. You're not worthy to hold on to a title if you don't have the integrity and the understanding and the grit and what you need to do to maintain what it means to be a champion.
Why do I care about influence? I care about influence because businesses are built on people. People have all these weird bugs in the system. They act f***ing weird. Like, people act weird. They act crazy. They act at total odds from what they say they want.
To do the job, to live your life, and protect yourself from all of the things that may affect your life. There are people right now that have been told that they're worthless.
The next step is being a leader. You have to decide that you want to lead. You have to step forward. That means not being like everybody else in your school. I don't care if you're in 6th grade or you're in college right now. It's being a leader.
I've come to learn that there's a huge difference between failing and failure. Failing is like stubbing your toe. You know it happens. It's a verb, you know it's just something you do. But failure is a noun, it's an identity. It's a place where you stay, and I failed a lot along the way, but I was never a failure because I kept trying. I kept doing it. I understood over time that my value wasn't representative of the things that worked or didn't work.
It's really bizarre. And one of the things, it's bizarre until you really get into the psychology of why it is. Once you understand why it is, then you can have some influence over it. So that really is the thing nobody talks about. And I'm always weirded out how nobody talks about emotion. Nobody wants to connect. Brene Brown talks about vulnerability. If you don't know Brene Brown, look her up. Dude, I will be the most vulnerable cat whenever, because it tells people I'm real. It gives you real insight into me as a human being. Now, why is that important? Because you know I wouldn't do it if it didn't move me towards my goals. So even vulnerability for me is a strategy. But the reason it works is because I'm opening myself up as a human being.
Connection regrets are, if only I'd reached out. And these are regrets about relationships, where you have a relationship, or you should have had a relationship, and it comes apart, usually through drifts, and you want to reach out, but you don't because you think it's going to be awkward and the other side's not going to care, so it drifts out even more, and then in some cases it ends up being too late. And so these 4 regrets, to me, reveal what makes life worth living. What do we want out of life? We want a stable foundation. We want some stability. We want a chance to do something. We want a chance to learn and grow and lead a psychologically rich life.
You're connecting with people on a real level. It is just a truth. Human beings want to connect with authentic people. And the people they distrust the most are the ones that they can't understand their motives. When you don't understand someone's motives, I'll speak for myself. When I don't understand someone's motives, they freak me out. I can feel them trying to move me around the chessboard, and I don't know why. I don't mind when I feel someone moving me around the chessboard when I know why they're doing it, because then I can decide if I want to move or not. But if I don't know why, there's just that resistance to being moved, the unknown, the unease that causes. So once I fully accepted that I was dealing with humans, that they didn't want to feel me moving them around the chessboard, that they would respond if I opened myself up to them, they would open themselves up to me, that they would open themselves up to each other, that we could really get some teamwork and some cohesion. If I hired for compassion, which is it just works in human societies. Humans are a social animal.
We want to do the right thing. I'm convinced that most of us want to do the right thing. And what else do we want? We want love. We want connection to other people. That's what makes life worth living. In a weird way, regret also taught me about what makes a good life, because I had collected 16,000 regrets from people in 105 countries. And when they told me their regret, in a sense, they were also telling me about what made life worth living.
How do I turn that? Like, how do I take something that feels like it hurts and turn it into progress?
This is important. In some ways, it's central. Regret hurts. There's no question about that. But here's the thing. Regret also instructs, and you can't have one without the other. So if you avoid the pain, you don't get any of the learning. So what you have to do is be able to process that pain. And I think there's a way for us to do that, to take our regrets, use them as signals.
It was so frustrating because I was chasing an idea, a value, not understanding that I was valued to begin with. A crumpled up 20 bill is still 20. It doesn't lose its value when it's beaten up. You have a right to what you're feeling. But just because you feel it doesn't mean it's real. I'm going to acknowledge that I don't like this, but I'm also going to acknowledge that I don't want to stay in this feeling, because if I already have to go through this diabetes, I already have to go through being different.
That they won't amount to anything. And they have allowed their emotions and their feelings to get disrupted. And ladies and gentlemen, you allow these things to happen because you're not protecting yourself. So you got to suit up. You got to put on that armor. You got to be a little bit more faithful. You have to understand that there is a purpose behind the purpose. And there is a greater power than you and I.
It's not being one of the guys. It's not being part of the pack. It's being different than other people. It's thinking different than other people. It's learning early in life that other people's approval, your friends, your buddies liking everything you do and believing in everything you do is not going to get you where you want in life. It's being a leader. It's being a visionary. It's being unique. It's stepping out. And when you're young, you're going to take criticism for it. You're going to take flack for being different, for not going with the flow, for not drinking with everybody or smoking weed with everybody. Stay away from those things when you're young. Stay away from them when you're old if you can. These are not the practices of people that win. Let everybody else smoke and do drugs and smoke weed and get in trouble and go down that path, and you lead. You step out, you be different, you be extraordinary, and you be proud of the fact that you're different.
I already have to go through feeling like a monster. I don't have to beat myself up in my own head. If you get a flat tire on the side of the road, you don't set your car on fire. You deal with the flat tire, but that's what I felt like I was doing, and a lot of people set the car on fire instead of addressing the main issue. They'd build upon it and make it worse. How can I become more than what's happened to me? How can I become more than the circumstance that I hate? But how can I not let the hate towards the circumstance?
No matter how you look at things, you can't do it alone. But you better put on that armor. Don't glorify yourself. Because you're only passing through. Suit up that armor and be about your business. Because that's what we have to do. Don't take your life for granted. Don't feel that you cannot be touched. Because you must know, keep that armor on, carry on, and live strong. And from the bottom of my heart, keep the faith, look up, and conduct your business. The question is, why do we fall?
The next thing is you got to work on your self-confidence, right? You got to become more confident. You know, when you're listening, it's something you don't have enough of. Self-confidence is the process, listen to me, of keeping the promises that you make to yourself. When you begin to make a promise, I'm going to get up at a certain time, or I'm going to clean my room, I'm going to get a certain grade, I'm going to study, I'm going to do something, deliver on the promise you make to yourself. Not what you promise your parents or you promise your friends, what you promise you. When you begin to stack what you promise yourself and you deliver on it, you begin to build a reputation with yourself that you can trust you, and that will serve you the rest of your life when you trust and you like you. That's self-confidence. Keep the promises you make to yourself. The next part is start to work on your self-worth, your identity, which is different than just your confidence. Self-worth means I deserve this. I'm worth this. And that comes from doing the hard work. That comes from being unique. It comes from noticing it when you're a leader, noticing it when you do things other people don't do, noticing it when you turn away from bullying somebody and you're the kind one, or you interrupt someone who's bullying and you stop it.
I can't control me. You know, sometimes we get addicted to this, like making everything beautiful, making everything like amazing, and sometimes we have to be real. Some situations do suck, they do, and we have to allow them to suck and not invalidate the fact that it does suck. My job is to not let my mind take over. And that's when I win and when I lose and everything in between. You have a choice between what you think and what you do, and that choice is everything is everything.
The freedom to find out what the truth is. That's why I won't call myself a truther, because I don't know what the truth is. I know what the truth isn't, which is pretty well everything they tell us. But what is the truth? And I'd like to know as much as anybody else, but the fact of the matter is we don't have the freedom to know. People can go out there and pretend that they're gurus and pretend that they know all this and know all that. Most of the time they don't. I mean, even when we discovered Tartaria and discovered the ancient civilization that exists right under our noses, right in all of our modern cities, just scattered in amongst it. You know, when we first discovered that, it made me realise that everything I thought about history is wrong. I mean, I knew history was wrong. I wrote a book about it. I wrote all this stuff, and I still agree with a lot of the stuff that's in the book. But so much of it was all based on the concept that the timeline was correct. It was all based on the concept that, you know, we'd actually built these cultures up from the ground up, and it was done by our societies. And not that we moved in and simply took over real estate, but we did. That's all we did. So, you know, the truth, whatever you think the truth is, seems to be subject to change. You know, the truth seems to be based on what people believe the truth to be, which is why I've often said belief is the enemy of knowledge. You've got to establish the freedom to find out what the truth is, and don't allow yourself to believe anything. If you're going to believe in anything, believe in your own sovereignty, believe in your own freedom, believe in your own power to make change, your own power to have the idea that could change the world. No matter what your status in society, you know, no matter whether you're rich or poor or physically able or not, you could still have the idea that could change the world, because everything that we see here is all based on ideas. It's just an idea.
All around the world, you see this recurring theme in different cultures, and it's described in different ways, but exactly the same in theme. We have a force, an expression of this Wetiko that takes a reptilian form. And the cultures around the world, again and again and again, when they're doing their creation myths, then some kind of reptilian, lizard-like, snake-like entities are described. So if you take the biblical version, you have Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And Adam and Eve are symbolic of, first of all, what humans were like before what became known as the fall. What the hell was the fall? The way I've seen this is that there was once not something that you'd call human. It was a state of consciousness that was experiencing a world, a frequency band that was like the one we're experiencing, but on a much higher level of awareness, consciousness, frequency. So things weren't happening in dense matter and low, slow frequencies. They were happening on a high frequency. Things were much more ethereal.
That there is a field of energy and that we have the language to use that field. This is an actual page out of the Gospel of Thomas. So we know that this ancient gospel actually existed. And you can see some of the letters. These are Greek letters. You can actually read some of, if you know Greek, you can see some of the Greek letters right here. In the Gospel of Thomas, two very important keys. This was written right around 300 years after the time of Jesus. In this gospel, okay, so here's what we're doing. We've been in the Buddhist monasteries in Tibet, and they're telling us that that feeling is the prayer, one. Two, that we must feel as if our prayers have already been answered. Okay, and now we're in an Egyptian monastery with the texts that used to be our tradition before they were edited. And we're going to look at the instructions that tell us how to do that. Okay if we do that? Is that good? Okay. Gospel of Thomas. If you have a copy of the Gospel of Thomas, this is verse 106, translated from the Nag Hammadi Library. And if you do not have a copy, it's in our books. and you can go to any library and pick this up. Verse 106. Look at what the Lost Gospel of Thomas says. It says, when you make the two, thought and emotion, one. So the Gospel of Thomas is talking about thought and emotion. It's saying when you make your thought and your emotion one, look at what happens. You will say to the mountain, mountain, move away, and the mountain will move away. Saying that when you can marry your thought and your emotion into one single potent force, that is when you have the power to speak. Let's go back to the Gospel of Thomas, another verse. Now this is verse 48. It says almost the same thing. This was so important that it was recorded at least 3 different times in the same gospel. Look at what this says. If the two make peace with each other in this one house. When Jesus is talking about the house or the temple, what is he talking about? What is he talking about? Precisely you. You are the house. You are the temple. If the two make peace with each other in this house, if thought and emotion become one, if they make peace with each other in this house, look what happens. They will say to the mountain, move away, and it will move away. He's telling us again in a completely different verse how powerful it is to marry thought and emotion. But they still haven't told us how. How do you do this? That's the next piece. In the early Christian Bible, your Bible today, there is a passage. How many have heard, ask and ye shall receive? Have you heard that before? Ask and ye shall receive. Have you heard that? I know people that ask and ask and ask and nothing happens. Because the asking is not done with the voice. The asking is not done, please, please bring this to my world. That's not asking. To ask, we must speak to the field, to the divine matrix in the language that the field recognizes. And a language that's meaningful. The field doesn't recognize our voice, it recognizes the power of our heart. Remember this morning, our heart, we have a feeling, creates electrical waves, magnetic waves. That's the language the field recognizes. So when you create the feeling in your heart as if your prayer is already answered, that creates the electrical and the magnetic waves that bring that answer to you. And you're going to see this in just a moment. Ask and ye shall receive. While we still have this passage in our text, in the Bible that you have today, the King James Version, John 16, 23, 24, what you have is the condensed version. You have the edited version. The edited version looks like this. This is the edited version. Whatsoever ye ask the Father in my name, he will give it to you. Hitherto have ye asked nothing in my name. Okay? Ask and ye shall receive, that your joy may be full. Okay, this is the edited version. This is so amazing to me because they took out the 2 sentences that tell us how to ask.
Ask and it shall be given you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. For everyone that asketh receiveth, and he that seeketh findeth, and to him that knocketh it shall be opened. That sounded pretty optimistic again. But again, I think it's a description of the structure of existential reality. And by which I mean, when I'm in my clinical practice and I observe, and this is also the case with my students, is let's say, people's lives aren't what they would like them to be. And so then you ask, why? Well, forget about tragedy and catastrophe, because that's self-evident, and we're not going to discuss that. Although the degree to which you bring about your own tragedy is always indeterminate. But I would never say that every terrible thing that is visited on a person is something they deserved. I think that that's a very dangerous presupposition, especially because everyone gets sick and everyone dies. But one of the main reasons that people don't get what they want is because they don't actually figure out what it is.
How many times have you said that you were going to leave something or someone, and you always followed the same path? How many times have you said the same thing, and countless times done the opposite? That is exactly what you have to stop doing. But clearly, you know what you should change, but you don't want to. Leave behind what hurts you and move on. That involves toxic partners, harmful habits, people or friends who hurt you, among many others. In fact, there are parts of yourself that are harmful to you. What kind of things? Those that you still keep and do not leave behind. A poor diet, unnecessary anger and resentment, jealousy towards other people, a lot of anger. If you stopped seeing the problems of others, maybe you would realize your own shortcomings. Implement big changes in your life, which involve only you, no one else. You will see great changes when you govern yourself and control what happens in your own life. Do not be that type of person who lets himself be controlled by the environment. You have to be the person who takes control of his life and follows his dreams and aspirations. No one can and has the right to control or manipulate you in any way, not even the person you love. If the opposite happens, remember, let go and move on. Life is too short to be suffering and crying for someone who doesn't respect you, for someone who makes you suffer sometimes for no specific reason, who sometimes only does it to make you suffer. I ask you something, are those moments really worth it? Are you really willing to waste a considerable portion of your time and your mental health in suffering? And let's say you don't suffer for something real. You suffer because someone wants to provoke those feelings, which makes it a real waste of time. Don't let that happen at any point. Do not forget to focus on your own well-being. Play sports and keep your mental stability safe, because despite what society thinks, it is tremendously important, since it is the engine of your life, your way of thinking, and what you will do to make the smartest decisions. If your physical, mental, and sentimental stability are weak, make all the efforts in the world to reverse them, and keep that triangle stabilized. I assure you that your life will be great when you solve these problems. Imagine a situation. A person gives you little hints, a weak hint every day. You clearly don't feel any pain, and to some extent it doesn't even bother you. Now, imagine that a person gives you those blows every day, one blow a day. I assure you that there will come a time when you will get fed up and you will say enough. That's why you don't have to let that day pass. That small problems go on for years until you gather courage and leave everything behind. Learn to leave things in due time. And if you don't want to, at least set clear limits and let the other person know that you don't like them doing that to you. If it happens that he continues to do so, I should not tell you what to do, because you already know the answer. Remember, let go and move on. Sit down for a moment and think about what you should do, what bothers you, and what makes you feel bad, and organize a strategy to improve your life, and leave everything behind that makes you feel bad, including people and bad habits. Value yourself, because no one else will do it for you.
You're single tasking. Now, here's some of the keys. Again, I teach these in my programs. Number one rule is do things faster.
That when you look in the mirror, that's the one person you can't lie to. So every morning I would shave my head thinking, God, I would reflect back on some of the lies I may have told somebody or some of the ways I acted I didn't feel comfortable doing. And I did it to impress other normal people.
But watch this. When I bought the house, she's so D, because you get the D's confused. She's so D that she knew I don't need to deal with that. You deal with that.
I know life will back you down. I know life can be tough. But you are on a journey. You know my dad would say, go get it, son. Go get it, be sweet this week. Go get it, be sweet, baby, go get it. Be sweet, baby, go get it, be sweet, baby. Every time I left the house, my mom would say, be sweet, baby, be sweet. My dad would say, go get it, son, go get it, son, go get it, be sweet, go get it. Be sweet, go get it, be sweet, go get it, be sweet. You got to be ready to fight and bounce back parts and counter punch, jab and jab back. Let me tell you something, life is a series of fights. The worst thing you can do is run away from your fights. In order for you to rise up, you better take your game to the next level. Your mindset needs to go to the next level.
In other words, pick up the pace. Move quicker. If you want to get more done, move quickly. Pick up the pace. Just move faster. Just move. Just imagine you're under a deadline. The other end of the building is on fire. You've got to get this done. It's absolutely amazing what happens when you put yourself on. Number 2 is work longer and harder. As Jim Rohn suggests, it's wonderful comment. Start a little earlier, work a little harder, stay a little later. You come into the office a little bit earlier. 1 hour of uninterrupted work is the equivalent of 3 hours of work in a busy office environment. So you find opportunities. You come in an hour earlier when no one's there, and you immediately start work, and you can get
The key word there is normal, everyday people. I was trying to make other people like me. How pathetic is that? So this mirror would always tell me, my reflection would say, God, you are a pathetic man. How does that feel every day to be this way? So I would just start having myself accountable. How did I attack today? How did I attack yesterday? And if I didn't do something I was proud of, I would write down a sticky note and I would fix it. So then my senior year in high school, it was a totally different David Goggins.
Work at lunchtime, but everybody goes for lunch. Everything quiets down. Don't go for lunch because everybody else is. Use that time to get on top of things. Don't stay an hour later. Yeah. What you'll do is you'll beat the traffic coming in, beat the traffic going home. It won't affect your schedule at all, but you'll actually double your productivity. So that's one way. Work longer and harder. The other is work faster. The third way is do things you're better at. Keep asking, what are the things that I am the very best at? Because those are almost invariably the things that pay you the highest hourly rate. So do more and more of the things that you're better at. Now, the fourth task is to get better at your key task. Improving at your key task is critical. It's sort of like skiing. If you're just an amateur skier, you have to go very slowly for fear of falling. The better you get at skiing, the faster you can ski. So since most skiers, kind of measure how many runs did I have today? Well, a good skier can get 10 or 15 runs down the whole mountain. A poor skier may only get 5 or 6.
What brings me joy and happiness is knowing how beautiful the mind is. And I'm one of the few people that didn't read about it, didn't experience it through some drug. If you don't know who you are, I can't tell you who you are. We are all great. No matter if you think you're dumb, no matter if you think you're fat, no matter if you are fat, no matter if you've been bullied, or no matter if you just got back from Iraq or Afghanistan and you have no legs or your arms or whatever, man, we all have greatness. You gotta find the courage. You gotta find the courage to put your Bose headphones on and silence the noise out of this world and to find it. And to find it because it's out there, but it's gonna take hard work, courage, self-discipline.
Your information needs to go to the next level. Your relationships need to go to the next level. To be a shock is about how you move, how you operate. How do you navigate? You have to be disciplined every single day and train yourself to follow through on all your fundamentals. And that's how you're going to be successful. You have to do it when you don't feel like you have to. Do it when you feel discouraged. You have to do it. When you don't feel healthy, you have to do it. When you're under the weather every single day, you have to train yourself to focus and commit to your business and follow through, fighting for your future, fighting for your dreams, fighting for success. When you come over depression, you raise your arms like a champ. When you overcome bankruptcy, raise your arms in victory.
Success is an obligation. Responsible. What did I tell you? I'm responsible for my wife's health. I'm responsible for the home. Listen to me, my wife ain't never do nothing with my kids in school. She was like, you take that. I was so dumb. I didn't even realize she was giving me stuff. I'm just being real. When you stuck on stupid, you don't even see it. She said it on the podcast, sometimes when you're so close to a thing, you can't even see it. Sometimes when you're so close to a thing and people trying to tell you you can't see it because you're too close to it. And I dare you to study, and we don't want to study because we don't want to discover what we need to change. Invest money, read and study. Guys, I got my PhD, master's degree, 4-year degree.
And you know the old saying that some people think they think, and the great majority would rather die than think. But the discipline of clear thinking is the most important because the way you think, the quality of your thinking determines the quality of your decisions and choices. Your decisions and choices determine the actions you take. The actions you take determine your results. Your results determine the quality of your life. And it all starts with your thinking clearly. Thomas Edison once said that thinking is the hardest discipline of all. It requires real effort to think because, especially today, we are so surrounded with distractions. I'm always amazed when I go down the street or fly or drive as people seem totally immersed in listening to things. They've got devices in their ears and stuff on their cell phone, and they're listening to music in their car, and they're watching television. They simply cannot stop bombarding their mind with sensory input. And of course, when you're doing that, it is impossible for you to think well.
Don't you ever lose hope. Don't you ever give up your mindset. Sharks are powerful creatures. You've got to think different. You've got to be different if you want to be at the top of your food chain. So how will you show up on game day instead of feeling down about your situation? Try to figure out what you can do to create positive momentum for yourself. Even at your lowest point, even at your lowest moment, there is something that you can do to create a small win. Now your small win might not be the same. As my small win, your small win might simply be getting out of the bed.
Let me tell you what school did. Everybody like, you don't need to go to school. Some of us need to go to school. Why? Because I never knew how to read and study. Studying is a discipline. There are things that just don't come by osmosis. It's a discipline. And the videos blew up. TGIM blew up. Why? Because of the three of us, Carl had the most C, and Carl was a biology major. So he would literally take the videos in and dissect them like he was in the lab. Business is a science. Marriage is a science. Parenting is a science. Health is a science. For real, you got to read and study, y'all. It's a science.
To think well requires that you practice a couple of techniques. Now, first of all, as Peter Drucker said, you need to take time to think. You need to create long, unbroken chunks of time. The rule is that fast decisions are usually wrong decisions. Especially fast decisions involving people or money are usually wrong decisions. So if you're going to make a decision that has long-term consequences, then you have to give it a lot of thought. You have to sort of look at it like a beautiful piece of porcelain. You look at it from every single side and think about it carefully. And the more carefully you think about a decision, the better the quality of that decision will be when you finally make it. How many times have you said, you know, if I just thought about that a little bit more, I wouldn't have done it? Or if I just thought a bit better, or I just taken time to think? Well, superior people, through experience and through painful experience, learn to take their time in making important decisions.
Your small win might be going to the gym. Your small win might be making one more phone call or getting up an hour earlier to put in some extra work. You have to believe that you control your destiny. Don't put that responsibility on anyone else but you. Something's happening. Something is taking place. The seeds that you sown there are still working for you. The time and energy you sacrifice, they are not in vain when you plant food, which is really your goal. You have to nurture it. You have to protect it. You can't do one set crunches and expect you have a six-pack. You've got to show up every day. You've got to show up day after day. You've got to show up when you're motivated. You've got to show up when you're feeling unmotivated.